Hey everyone, welcome back to a Change of Heart podcast. This is a little bit different of an episode.
Mhm.
We are doing a bonus episode, and as you can see here, I have one of my lovely friends, Mariah, with me. Say hi, Mariah.
Hi.
So, we're skipping all the fluff because this is a bonus episode. We don't have a question of the day or any of that. We're going to jump right into it because, as you can tell by the title, we are talking about this season of Married at First Sight, and why this season in particular is triggering and exhausting. So, Mariah, I'll let you give the people like an idea of what the show itself is about, and then we can talk about the shenanigans that has taken place in season 12.
Okay, so for those of you who don't watch the show, Married at First Sight is it's a show about a bunch of strangers. Um, the experts, mix and match the people, and they have to they do questionnaires, so they vet the people and everything like that, and then they meet with them one on one, typically when we're not in the coronavirus.
Yeah.
But so it was a lot of video meetings and stuff like that. They do all of that stuff to try and figure out which ones they think are going to match up the best. They match up it's typically about maybe 4 to 5 couples that they typically match up, and they do not meet until their
Yeah.
wedding day. So they are quite literally marrying a stranger, and it literally is married at first sight. So that happens, and then you get to follow them on this journey of being married to a stranger that they just met at the altar for 8 weeks. And yeah, that's basically the premise of the show, what it's basically about.
Yeah. And sidebar, two things. First of all, spoiler alert. Okay. We are going to be putting out lots of spoilers for season 12. So, for one couple in particular. So, if you have not watched it and you don't want spoilers, don't listen to this. Watch the season first and then come back because we're going to talk about all the things. Second thing, I just assume y'all know Mariah. So, I didn't even bother to introduce one of my best friends. So, Mariah is one of my best friends. We went to college together. And the reason why I asked her to do this episode with me is because she actually had been watching Married at First Sight way before I had. I just jumped on board last season. Last season was the first season that I watched the full season of it. And so we've been having little powwows about season 12. And I was like, we need to talk about this. Like, there's so much to break down. It's
So
like,
many feelings.
yeah, we need to talk about this. All right. So, yes. So, everything that Mariah said, that is what the show in itself is about. So, season 12. I didn't even know where to begin. So, I'm just going to do a recap of what has happened so far because that will help to bring more context to why I am saying that this particular season has been exhausting and triggering on so many levels, regarding some of the issues, or a lot of the issues with a particular couple, Paige and Chris, that it's just been straight shenanigans. So I'm just going to recap us through the first 24 hours of their wedding day to the next day. And Mariah, I'll let you chime in. Let me also say that with this platform, with Change of Heart podcast, I always want to have conversations that are constructive and productive. And so the intent is not to bash either one of them. And I don't necessarily want, it's not a matter of me holding back on certain things. I want to make sure that the conversation is constructive. And I do feel like there's a bigger picture of the different issues that they have had throughout the season. So, all right, so let's go ahead and jump into this. So, first things first, homeboy Chris was engaged anywhere between 2 to 3 months prior to another woman prior to getting married at first sight to Paige. Okay. So the qualities he wanted,
Red
yeah,
flag.
red flag number one, numero uno. So the qualities he wanted in his new wife is that she be fine and a freak. Okay. Those are his words, not mine. Verbatim. Those were the qualities that he wanted in a wife. At their wedding, he told her that she has the same kind of dog as his ex. He had his ex's name tattooed on his arm and he got it covered a few days prior to the wedding. While they were at the wedding, at the reception, these were the questions he asked his wife, who, mind you, he just met this woman, literally just met her for the first time at their wedding. Are you a virgin? Are you on birth control? Do you have a high sex drive? Then he proceeds to tell her that he did not pleasure himself for 3 days prior to their wedding so he could prepare himself for her.
He was
I am,
fasting, he said, fasting.
yes, he's been fasting. I am not even like exaggerating these statements. This is verbatim what happened. So in his confessionals, he constantly talked about how she's not his type. He talked about how she has a nice body, specifically her having a fat booty. Booty was not the words that he used. He tells her bridesmaids that she is not the type of woman he usually dates. When they ask him what his type is, he says, pretty girls. Literally, pretty girls is what he says. Like trophy wife type of women. And one of her bridesmaids was like, "Oh, well, Paige is a trophy wife." And he was like, "No, no, she's not." He also says that Paige is probably what he needs on paper, but she is not what he wanted. And Paige is gorgeous. Okay. Just going to drop that there. He's made it very clear that he was not attracted to her. So they're a married couple. They have sex on their wedding night, the morning after. He then leaves to go get them breakfast, tells her that he's going to get them breakfast. He's gone for several hours, does not answer her calls, does not let her know where he's at, does not bring any food back with him when he does come back. And when she asked him what's wrong, he said he had a panic attack. And the reason for the panic attack is that he is not attracted to her. Okay. So let me make sure I've gotten this like red flag 52 at this point. So from there, she goes to brunch with his parents. She has a conversation with his parents, just saying like, he told me that he wasn't attracted to me. So I'm just trying to like figure out what's going on because he's been intimate with me. So I'm just confused right now. He then gets upset with her for talking to his parents about this and flips out and makes it appear that she is the one who is wrong, who has done something wrong. This is within the first 24 hours. I'll let you take over from here, Mariah.
Like she said, this whole time it said day one of marriage.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. So from there, like she said, he tried to flip it and make it see, and like he was mad at her for speaking to his parents. Um, I don't know if Angel even mentioned that his father brought up. Do you want to bring that one up?
You got it.
On the wedding day, they're at the reception, and Chris's father, she asked his parents for some words of wisdom, some advice for being married to their son, and the mother gave some very generic advice like don't go to bed angry, or don't let something continue to stew between the two of you without talking it out and dealing with it. Okay, that's some good advice. Thanks, Mama. And then his father proceeded to tell her that, Chris works really hard, and when he comes home, he needs the intimate touch of his wife,
Verbatim.
and not once a month. Uh, you could say it was awkward. So that was just a sidebar that also happened at the wedding. So yeah, again, day one of marriage. So day two, I don't know if much happened day two. We can skip day two. Day three, they're on the honeymoon. Um, they trying to have some breakfast. I'm like, she finally getting to eat because you never bought her no food when you was gone for hours. You never brought her anything to eat. So I was happy to see her with an omelet. I really was. So yeah, I mean, he didn't bring a Pop Tart, nothing. But anyways, they're eating on their first day of their honeymoon, and he's acting weird. So she kind of asked him, like, hey, what's going on with you? He proceeds to tell her that, he just got some disturbing, I think is the word he used,
Devastating.
some disturbing news. And so he brings this up of his own accord, then proceeds to tell her he don't want to talk about it. She's like pressing and pressing and pressing, and he's like, "No, what time do you want to go to the beach, or the pool?" They're in Las Vegas, so there's no beach around. What time do you want to go to the pool? And she's like, "How are you going to bring this up and then act like you don't want to talk about it?" Anyways, so he's like, it's this whole thing. Everybody in the room knows. All the producers know. They're trying to tell him, you need to tell your wife this information. The information he needs to tell his wife is that his ex fiance, the red flag one that he mentioned on the wedding day, she's pregnant. So he finally tells her later on that day, though he pulled her into the bathroom, had her take off her mic, turned on the sink and the shower. I was waiting for him to start flushing the toilet over and over again. But he did all of this, even though everybody else in the room already knew, to tell her the news that his ex fiance is pregnant. So these are just facts. These are things that happen. So he tells her that, and that was day 3.
Yes. And I want to add that when the producers found out about it, he told them he didn't even want to tell Paige. Like the
That was
producers had to be like, you have to tell her this. He's like, I don't want to. I don't want to. And I'm like,
And even in their conversation, he was like, I don't want to tell you. And she's like, that's problematic for me. And
yes,
I'm like,
as your
as
wife,
it
that
should
is a
be.
problem. Yes. So that's day 3. Okay. So she finds out that he now has a baby on the way. His ex-fiance is alleged to be 6 weeks pregnant. And throughout all of this, Paige has stayed. Day 3. Okay. So after this, they're all on the honeymoon. So it's 5 couples this season. The other 4 couples are also on the honeymoon. So they have like group dates or whatever. And Chris tells the group that he has a baby on the way. Okay. So without going into a whole lot of detail with that unrelated to their marriage, yet worth mentioning, he ends up cussing out 2 of the other wives after they keep bringing up this baby situation and saying that, they're looking out for Paige's best interest. Then he cusses and yells them out again in the van home ride or the van ride home from their excursion, and somewhat attempts to fight one of the husbands who told him he can't talk to his wife crazy, like, you can't cuss my wife out in front of me. And full disclosure, I'm not a fan of Eric and Virginia or how they handled it either. But that's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss Paige and Chris. So there's that. He also tells Paige that he will not help to take care of her dog, take it out or anything, in spite of her willing to be a whole bonus mother to his child that she just sprung on him. He does not believe in joint accounts, but he wants her to split the money and wedding gifts that she got for their wedding from her people. So after all of this, he tells Paige that he is still in love with his ex-fiance and that they have had conversations about getting back together. So at this point, we think, all right, our girl Paige is done, throwing in the towel. But she comes back. And so she asks him, why didn't you discuss this with me as your wife? And he says, you didn't ask.
He flipped it back on her again.
And then
said,
made it a thing of, well, I didn't lie to you. I didn't keep it from you. You didn't ask me about it. Okay. He then tells her that he wants to be with her because he's now spiritually attracted to him because she prayed for him after he cussed everybody out. He says, I'm attracted to you now. I'm spiritually attracted to you.
Yes. And mind you, after he told her that his ex-fiance was pregnant, after she found out that news, he told her, I'm starting to become physically attracted to you. So that's something that, like, it's almost like he pulls her back in by saying these little comments, like sweet nothings.
Yes. Yes. So this brings us up to the most recent episode that aired this last Wednesday. So, excuse me, the couples are back from their honeymoon. They're supposed to be moving into their apartments together. And he refuses to let production in. And he tells her that him and his ex fiance are getting back together and he is divorcing her. This is day
He's
11.
they literally come back from the honeymoon. He gets a flight to Chicago. Like, so Paige moves into the other couples are moving into the apartments together. She moves in by herself because he needed a couple days and comes back, like Angel said, and doesn't let production film or anything. Tells her he wants a divorce. Him and his ex are getting back together. He's contacted a divorce lawyer, blah, 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 blah. None of this was seen because he
Right.
refused to let production film it. So we just reading lines on the
Yeah.
screen.
Yes. And then Paige relayed to production that we heard the phone conversation between them two, what he had said to her. But he comes back. This is not the end. He comes back to the apartment. And so Pastor Cal and Paige are meeting. And we're going to talk about their conversation later, but her and Pastor Cal are having a conversation about like everything that has happened over the last, not even 2 weeks. It's a week and a half at this point. So Chris comes into the apartment, and when Pastor Cal is like asking him questions, the first person to hold him accountable for anything, he's like, I don't want to talk about it. Oh, I don't feel comfortable answering that, or out of respect for her, I'm not going to answer that. Like, yeah. So when Pastor Cal leaves, Chris is seen pulling Paige into not even a hug, it was an awkward embrace. And he whispers something into her ear that we cannot hear. Then Paige later says in a confessional that what he whispered to her was that he was afraid of falling in love with her. And once he like lets go of this embrace, he's smiling and she's smiling. And I'm just like, it it ended with her saying that she thought it was going to be like a cut and dry, bye, we're going our separate ways, but now she's confused. And that was when I had a whole connection, because I just didn't understand what is there to be confused about, baby girl. So, did I miss anything, Mariah? Did I miss any red flags?
I think you hit all the red flags. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, now that everyone is caught up to speed on the shenanigans, let's talk about why this season has been beyond exhausting and triggering to watch. And I'll start us off. For me, I feel like this whole situation with Paige has reinforced an unhealthy view of strength and the strong Black woman complex. And the reason why I say that is because so once the other couples found out about this baby that he has on the way, all the women were like, "Oh, Paige, you're so strong for staying by him. You're so strong for being willing to stick with him throughout this." And I'm like, is that strength though? No, it's not, because she does not have to stay with him. They literally have been married for, at this point it was day 3. It's like 3 days. She does not know this man. She literally owes nothing to this man. And I feel like it reinforces this idea of these negative characteristics that we attach to strength, as in you stay by the man who does you wrong. You stay by the man who cheats on you. You stay by the man who puts you through all of this mess. Like, that makes you strong. That makes you a ride or die. And it's like, no, 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 no. Like, abort mission. I don't like that in itself was frustrating to watch, because I feel like it reinforces this negative mindset regarding strength looking like you accepting and tolerating any and everything for the sake of the title of being a ride or die. And it's like, nah, dog. Like, this
Mhm.
behavior is not okay and it is not acceptable. And there's so many more levels to that I feel like it does a disservice and to Paige it does a disservice to Paige specifically to act as though she is strong for standing by someone who has been disrespectful and degrading to her throughout a 3-day period. That's my soapbox.
Yes, just to co-sign back off of what you said, this last episode, it was literally like she said, it hasn't been 2 weeks, it's been 11 days. And I think to your point, if you go on a sidebar to that, like, I think sometimes as Black women, we can be the ultimate cheerleaders and uplifters of Black men. We do not want to be the ones to be tearing them down and speaking ill of them because they get it so much somewhere else.
Mhm.
And so I almost feel like sometimes we are that to a fault, to our own
Yeah.
detriment, that she is sticking by this Black man through all of this, and those were literally just facts. This is
Right.
not us being biased. This is literally the conversations that were had. These are the things that happened. And I do think sometimes uh, that Black women do that to their detriment. Um, and I think it's just because we want to always lift up our brothers, lift up Black men, just because of how they are sometimes seen and portrayed, and um, the stereotypes that can come along with them. And so we
Mhm.
always want to be those ones that are always going to be the ones that are in their corner, lifting them up and everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have so many thoughts that I'm trying to, like, you know how you have conversations that you would have in your group chat that you would say
Yeah.
things and not have to filter it, but when you have a public platform, you're more mindful. That's what is going through my head right now. It's like trying to be mindful of the things that I say, but also be true to my thoughts regarding this. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. And just the idea that I feel like Paige definitely got the short end of the stick. There's just no way of getting around
Did
that.
she
She
get a
definitely
stick?
listen.
Did she get a stick? Because I don't even know if this is a short end, because this is worse than that.
Seriously. And I feel like, and so also to bring some more context that I didn't mention in the recap of everything, Paige has been very clear about the fact from day one that she's wanted a God fearing man. Like her faith is something that's really important to her. And I do believe that a part of her wanting to stay is because she takes covenant very seriously, which as you should. I'm not trying to say
Yeah.
that you shouldn't be. Married at first sight versus marrying someone that you've known, I do feel like it's a little bit of a different kind of situation. That's just me, but it is a legal binding marriage, to be fair. Like they do actually get married. But I
Mhm.
do feel like there is a part of her wanting to stay is feeling like she is committed to this marriage in spite of how the person is behaving and treating her. And so I think too a part of this idea of the strength that she has to be able, and also let me throw this out here. Homegirl's been real chill, like real
Yes.
chill.
Her tone, just the same, except for that phone call to the
Yes.
producer.
The only time she has like went left was in the conversation with the producers when he said that he wanted a divorce, and I really don't think she had that same energy with him, to be quite frank. But all of
Yeah.
her conversations with him this whole time, she has been very chill, very laid back, very willing to accommodate all of the mess that comes with him. And I think she maybe has a mindset that she is required to put up with these things because she is married to him. Um, but it's unhealthy.
Yeah, and you can't help but wonder if something like that is due to your upbringing, like what
Yeah,
did you see growing up, the type of relationships you saw, or is it something you like, something that you learned
yeah,
in church? You hate to say that, but sometimes people pick up bad things from um, their parents, how they grew up. I really don't know, because I don't know like what her mom and dad's relationship were like. Um, I do remember 2 men walked her down the aisle,
Mhm.
so I think she has a father and a stepfather. So you kinda can't help but wonder, like, what is the root of why she is thinking that she needs to stay,
Yeah.
um, in something that is clearly unhealthy.
Yeah. And that bigger picture that I was talking about earlier, like what you said in regards to maybe that's something that she had seen portrayed in other women in her family life, whatever it might be. I think that that is something that plays out for a lot of women because when you look at a lot of people's grandparents, great grandparents, they were married for years.
Mhm.
And it was
Years.
not always because it was a healthy, happy marriage, if we want to be honest. A lot of them put up with a whole lot. And so it can create this mindset that you stand by your man in spite of, that you put up with this, you put up with that because you're married, because you're, and some of it ain't even about a marriage, just being in a relationship. And it does create this very negative and unhealthy, we love the word toxic, toxic even mindset
Mhm.
regarding being this ride or die woman, being a strong woman, as though that implements being pretty much a walking mat. And like that is not okay. Like that is not what strength entails.
Right. Sometimes strength is walking away.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I think for some of the relationships that people witness coming up, some of those couples stayed together so long because the husband was the breadwinner.
Mhm.
She might have been a stay at home mom. She didn't have any money for herself. And so she stayed because she kind of like didn't have anything that she felt like she could fall back on, and then um, needing that provision for children and stuff. And so I think sometimes when we see, our grandparents' relationships and stuff like that, it's like a different time where you
Yeah.
wouldn't see as many women working. And so that could be something that I think that maybe if people looked at the full picture, they'd be like,
Mm.
oh, this is probably why, she stayed in this versus you see um, a lot of people they don't do that these days
Real talk.
because it's like I can get a job
Yeah. Yeah.
or I'm already working. So yeah, that could have been a factor, but you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say too, another thing that I think plays a huge role for her is her faith. And one of the points that I've put in caps is abuse of faith and misuse of the term God fearing man.
Allegedly, he is a God fearing man.
And let me say this in all seriousness, I'm never going to be the judge of somebody's relationship with God. I don't know this man from Adam
Right.
or Eve. However, there has just been a pattern of comments, behaviors that are not reflective of,
Right. You looking for some fruit of the spirit?
yes. And my concern with watching their relationship play out is when he's in error, the way that he tends to get her back is when she appears to be at the point where she's like, "All right, I'm done. I'm out." Is him making some spiritual comment, and that just like sets
Right.
her whole life back together with him.
Yes.
And that in itself is like, ah, ah. And I think that she made it clear enough, like prior to them getting married, and she's made comments with him about how like being with a God-fearing man was something that she asked for, that was something that was really important to her. And so I do think that there is a level of manipulation there that knows, well, if I just say the right things, sprinkle a little Jesus on it, she's gonna come right.
Right. Exactly. He at one point, he apologizes to the and to Paige, and he says, that he hasn't been acting like a man of God.
Mhm.
So he says that, and then like 10 minutes later, he blows up the group, and you're like, wait, what happened
Yeah.
to what you just said? So it's just kind of confusing that he will say one thing out of his mouth and then, but his actions prior or after are like completely not lining up with what he said.
Yeah.
Uh, so that is something that you can't help but notice.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. And when I speak to the abuse of faith component of it, um, I'm I want to like be clear about that because abuse is a really like strong word, obviously. But I feel like he my perspective, my opinion, he uses his faith in a very manipulative way. And that's what I mean by the abuse of faith because I feel like he knows what to say to twist things to make Paige feel like she's in the wrong. He knows
mhm.
what to say to twist things enough to make her feel as like, as my wife, these are your wifely duties. And
Duties.
let's talk about that. So in the conversation with her and Pastor Cal, she mentioned to Pastor Cal that um what's his face? Chris had said that he was not attracted to her the day after their wedding, but that they had been intimate the night of their wedding and the morning of their wedding. And Chris was the one who initiated that. And so that was confusing to her because she felt like no one that I have ever been intimate with, they've never been like, I don't find you attractive, but I want to sleep with you.
Yeah.
Which, not saying her specifically, we can call a thing a thing. There are men who they don't have to be attracted to somebody to sleep with them. That's a whole nother different episode, nonetheless. Um, but something that she said that I thought was really, really important was, and you can correct me on this, Mariah, 'cause I don't remember verbatim what it was, but it was something along the lines of she didn't feel a connection with Chris, but essentially she felt like it was her wifely duty to have sex with him.
And she
Did I
didn't
say that
wanna.
right?
Yeah, you did, and she said she didn't wanna upset her new husband on the first night by, refusing, so she, I feel like, reluctantly consented.
Yeah. And then he did not say it, but it was implied that he was trying to twist it to say that she was the one that
Yeah,
initiated.
that
And
it
it
was
was
the other
like,
way around.
yeah. And so even that mindset of her, I feel like there were things that she tolerated and that she put up with this idea of this is what I'm supposed to do as a Christian woman.
Right.
And as I was thinking about this, the thing that came to mind for me is that we have to stop over spiritualizing romanticism, specifically as Christian women, because I feel like Christian women, we have a very bad habit of accepting behaviors or lack thereof, to be honest, just because a man says that he's a Christian. Like, because he says that he's a Christian, I feel like we will be quicker to be dismissive of things that are going on. We will be quicker to give passes for things that are not okay. We have a tendency to feel like because this person is a Christian, then this is a match made in heaven. I believe that matches can be made in hell too. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think that people don't like people know so many people in their lives that are Christians in name only. They're nominal
Yes.
Christians. Um, and they basically refer to themselves as a Christian maybe because that's the religion they grew up with in their household, but they're not like practicing. You'd never know. You're shocked when you find out. And so for her to kind of just take him at his word when she's not even known him 24 hours, um, that to me was just like, oh wow.
Yeah.
um, and you like almost like this, uh, like you were saying, like romanticizing it and everything caused her to like throw common sense out of the window, even though, she says at the wedding, you know, to her friends, I'm not really feeling a connection. Um, so like you didn't feel a connection and you still like proceeded because you have kind of been ingrained to think this is
Right.
your wifely duty.
Hmm. And I feel like too, even with this idea as Christian women, we sometimes can get excited about the fact that a man is a Christian, just like they're unicorns or something. And I've been said being a Christian no longer holds weight for me. And let me clarify, because don't nobody come for me. I'm not saying that I would date someone who is not a Christian. Like that is a deal breaker. But the fact that you say that you are a Christian or you identify as Christian, it holds no weight. Like, let me see that fruit. Like, let me
Right.
see what your lifestyle reflects. That holds more weight for me than simply identifying as a Christian. A lot of people identify as Christian. That doesn't mean that you have a relationship with God. And I feel like with Paige specifically, that she was so caught up in this idea that during their vows, or I don't know if it was the vows or something that one of the family or friends said, was that he was a God fearing man. And so I feel like she heard that and held on to that
Yes, she
and
definitely
was like,
has.
okay, this is it. This is God ordained. And there have just been so many things that have happened that are in contrast to what it looks like and mean to be a God fearing man. Like I said, I'm not trying to judge that man's walk per se,
Mhm.
but there are things that don't line up with what we would know to be a God fearing man. And even just this idea of her accepting a lot of his behavior based off of this idea that, well, God has put us together for a reason. She says that a lot. I believe that God has put us together for a purpose. I'm not really sure what that purpose is, but, we have been brought together for a reason. And this is even after finding out about the baby. And Mariah and I were talking about this yesterday because I had an aha moment because I'm one of those people who from day one I felt bad for Paige, but as each week has gone on, it has been a little bit harder to see her stay in a situation that us as the viewing public can tell is like super unhealthy and not okay. And I realized that I needed to extend some more grace to Paige because I was in a very similar situation, what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah, maybe
Not
5 years ago.
let me say similar, not the same, but similar in the sense of getting into a situation with a guy who had been engaged, who had ended an engagement very shortly after him and I were introduced to one another. And I feel like as women, we all have that gut feeling of this is not a good idea. This is not going to end well. This is not going to work out. And a part of my willingness to continue that relationship was in my head. The people who introduced us have a great track record with me. I trust them. I
Mhm.
trust that if they introduce me to someone that, this person would be a good representation of them, he was not. And that was not a reflection on them. They still have a good track record with me. But there were a lot of times where I was feeling like, well, maybe this is God like testing my patience. Maybe this is God helping me to learn how to go with the flow. Maybe this is, God teaching me about areas that, I need to work on. And the reality is dude was in the wrong. Like it is what it is. But as Christian women, I do think that when we meet a Christian man, especially when they have a title, we can feel as though that the things that they are doing are not intentional, or it's not what it seems, it's not what it appears, and there is a lack of accountability in holding them accountable because we feel as though, oh, because they're a Christian man, it's not that bad, or it's not what it appears, it's not what it seems, or we end up making excuses and tolerating and accepting things that are not okay.
Very true. I think you kind of touched on something I wrote on that was triggering and exhausting, and that was um, accepting the bare minimum. Like, I was like, wait, hold up. Why is the bare minimum the standard? So watching someone continually accept like crumbs in essence is very exhausting because you're just like, wait, these are things that he should do. He should be doing more than this.
Yeah.
So watching that play out is very it's very exhausting, and you can't help but wonder like what is going on, or um how do you see yourself? Like, do you love yourself? Like, how do you view your self worth and all those things if you're willing to accept so little and like latch on to these crumbs like they're bigger than what they are? So that for me was very triggering and exhausting because I'm like, are we for real right
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. And even this idea of wanting something more for someone than they want for themselves.
now? Oh my gosh.
Like, I think it's pretty much universal that the women watching are like, Paige, you do not have to put up with this. Like, you deserve so much more than this. And even the other wives, which is what caused some confrontation.
Right.
But it's like that feeling of wanting her to leave, wanting her to get out, wanting her to know that he is very much so being manipulating. He is very much so gaslighting her, like that she's worth so much more of it, and seeing her stay in that situation. That for me, I think has been the exhausting part of it, because on one hand you do feel bad for her, like watching all of it play out. Like it's hard to watch. Call a thing a thing, it is hard to watch. But in the same sense, I've seen a lot of people say like, I don't feel bad for Paige, like whatever happens to her happens to her at this point, because we're on red flag 5 bajillion at this point and she is still choosing to stay by this man for whatever reason. And I can get the frustration of that, because I've had friendships where it's like you've seen them stick it out with old boy who is
Mm,
trash, and it's like, baby girl, honey, sweetie, come, let me take you by the hand and let's get out of this thing. And they continue to stay, they continue to choose that man, and it's frustrating. I've been in relationships where I've chose to stay, so it's like, it's frustrating to watch someone who, well, we don't know Paige, but it's like anybody deserves better than this. Like, this is not okay. This is a really unhealthy situation to for anybody to be in. But to see her be willing to stick it out day after day, red flag after red flag, it's hard.
it is. I think the other thing that's extremely difficult is how many outs she's had. Like, she hones in and keeps talking about how like this whole thing is God ordained. And I do think that I watch probably way too many recaps of this show. And one that I watched, there was somebody on there and she made a really good point. She talked about God's perfect will versus God's permissive will.
Mm.
Really, really good went in on that. And she used a great example talking about how with Abraham and Sarah, Isaac was God's perfect will, and Ishmael was kind of God's permissive will, because Sarah kind of took things into her own hands and created this whole situation
Then
that
got mad
could have
about
been,
it.
huh?
And then got mad about it.
Yeah, and so, and God, God allowed this whole thing to happen. It's like, hey, so you don't have faith, okay. Mhm. I mean, it didn't mess up the perfect will. It still ended up coming to pass, but like now you have this other aspect of it. And so they talked about that, and basically saying like, we don't know if this was God's perfect will for Paige.
Mhm.
But I think the thing that I would say is sometimes we get ourselves in situations and
Oh
we
yeah,
try to put it on God.
yeah.
We try to say that, God put me in this, and sometimes it's not God. Sometimes it's us. We put ourselves in the situation, but God in his grace offers means of escape, and ways for us to get out of the situation. Um, and just, he's still with us even when we veer off
Yeah.
course, and also be in our heads thinking that it was him when it wasn't. It was us. So seeing her in this situation and seeing there being opportunities
Mhm.
for her
A
to
way of escape.
remove herself, escape from from this situation that she's in is frustrating too, because like I think that's another thing that's triggering and exhausting every episode. You're like, oh my gosh, she's gonna leave. This is it. And when she doesn't, you're like, oh my gosh, so I have to watch next week to see when she gets out.
Yeah.
Like when Pastor Cal is saying in his confessional that he can't support this marriage because he also can see, based on the information that he's been told, that this is not a healthy situation. um it is very exhausting and triggering when you want to save someone that seems like they don't want to be saved.
Yes. Yeah. And it's hard too because it's like on one hand, I feel like out of all of the women who are on this season, Paige was definitely the one who came in with such pure
Had
intention.
pure intention. She really did.
Yes. And she's really like, she has the type of all in attitude that you need to do this type of show.
She's
And
definitely been leaning in to
yes,
the process.
yes. And I feel like she definitely is the type of person who wants to be in love, wants the fairy tale, wants the marriage and all of that. And so it is really sad to have to see things play out the way it plays. And then it's also like this idea of seeing her stay in a situation because she wants something so badly, but knowing like this isn't what you want. Like not like this.
Right.
Not like this.
Yeah, I think the other thing for me is like it's the idolization of marriage. And with that, like being like there being almost like a desperation for it. I think a lot of women, and this is probably why it's triggering and exhausting, have seen themselves be in that phase
Oh yeah.
where they felt like, I know for me, I feel like it was early 20s where I was like really wanting to be married. Y'all, I had this whole Pinterest board. Like, why am I on this Pinterest board adding things for a wedding? And there's no prospects, there's no man in sight. And so I think that we all, I don't know, because like I feel from the time you're young, you're kind of, it's almost put in you like you're playing with baby dolls, like you're playing house.
Yeah.
And it's like you're so young and this whole idea is already in your head of, being a wife, being a mother, having a family. And so I definitely had this phase in my early 20s where I was like, oh, I really want this. You wanted the house, you wanted the white picket fence, you wanted the man, you wanted the marriage, you wanted the wedding. And just idolizing it. And I literally had to, at some point I was like, this is not, you need to live in where you're at right now, and right now you're single,
Yeah.
so put down the Pinterest. Stop adding wedding dresses and flower arrangements
Yeah.
and all this stuff to your Pinterest board. There ain't no man. Come back to it when that is your reality.
Mhm.
And so I had to like disconnect myself from it because I saw that it was becoming like an idol to me. And something that I always prayed was I never wanted to be desperate for something. Because
Mhm.
when you're desperate for something, you're like, accept like the first man that shows up and is like willing to put a ring on it. And maybe he ain't it. Or just the first man that shows any type of interest. Um, some women, they might even, I think I did, like you, like almost every Christian man you're seeing, you're like, is
Is
God,
that one? Is that my husband?
is that my
Mhm.
husband?
Yeah.
And it's like, girl, this is not it. Every Christian man you meet, one, you're not attracted to all of them. And like, stop trying to make yourself attracted to the men you're not attracted to.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think the idolizing it is and when you let it get to a point where it becomes like your desperation, uh, that can be a real problem. You don't want to um, go into something because you're so desperate for something. You think that your eggs are becoming hard boiled. Your clock is ticking,
Yeah.
and God, I'm running out of time. This needs to happen now. And it's like, for me, I was like, I was in this phase in my early 20s. I am not running out of time. Um, but yeah, I definitely saw myself in her in that aspect, in the fact that she, to me, out of all the women, came across as the most eager for marriage and for a wedding and a husband. And she's like, I feel like I'm called to be a wife and a mother. And yeah, so that to me was it was triggering because I could see myself in that
Mm,
aspect of it because I was her. I don't think I got to the extreme that I feel like maybe she is at.
yeah.
She's very eager for it. Um, but yeah, I think that I definitely that was triggering for me.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I think too, I can't remember if we've talked about it today, but we've talked about in past conversations, is just this idea of the self-worth and the self-value and being able to not allow that desperation component of wanting to be married so bad, wanting to have a relationship, wanting to be a
Mhm.
wife, all of that to allow you to accept and tolerate just anything.
Yeah.
Like anything. And my last thing that I had written down that was triggering and exhausting are the extreme levels of gaslighting and manipulation. And I feel like as for women who may struggle with self-esteem, self-worth, self-value, all of that, a man who is manipulative can pretty much do anything and you'll accept it. You'll tolerate it. And what got me so much was when Paige finally did speak up about things that she had issues with, um, he would always flip it and make
Right.
her the one who was wrong. He would always flip it and make it seem like she was the one who was causing the issue or the problem. And that was mad triggering for the simple fact that I've been in relationships before where you have like that feeling like something's not right, something is going on, and when you confront it, they try to make you feel like you the crazy one or
Mhm.
you're the one who's like making things up, and then it turns out to be what you said what you thought this whole time. And
Mhm.
that in itself is exhausting. That is an exhausting game to play. And I like, if nothing else for Paige, I really just want her to be able to accept for herself that, like, this ain't it, baby. This ain't like
Right.
you don't have to put up with this.
I don't know. I was watching a recap last night, and they were basically saying, maybe this whole thing is causing so much conversation. People are so triggered and exhausted by it. Maybe it is like supposed to be a tool for maybe a woman who's currently with a man that is similar to a Chris to be like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need to get out of this unhealthy, toxic relationship. So I think something that I've seen is a lot of people have been saying that they've seen themselves like in something that she's done, like in some of the ways that she's reacted to him and in accepting some of the things that he said, in saying that, when I was younger and my self-esteem was low, I was in a very similar situation. So maybe it could be something that the fact that we're watching and viewing this on TV, it's supposed to help somebody. I hope that's something that comes out of it where maybe someone watches it and be like, oh my God, I'm her. I need
Yeah.
to remove myself from this situation. Um,
because sometimes it's easier to see someone else and see all
Oh,
the
yeah.
things that are wrong than it is to look in a mirror and be like, wait, why am I triggered?
Yeah.
Is he sitting beside me? Why am I triggered? Is it the current relationship I'm in, or I hope that that is able to help somebody. So I hope that some good comes out of this triggering, exhausting season that we've been watching.
Yeah.
Let me see if I had anything else on mine.
I'm done
Uh,
with my list.
hmm?
I'm done with my list.
I don't think I'm trying to see. We talked about that one. We talked about putting everything on God. Just like God is not the author of confusion.
God ain't did this. Can't do that.
Yeah. Here's the one other. It's ignoring because she's very smart.
Oh
She
yeah.
has a master's degree. This girl is not dumb. But it's the ignoring the red flags. I've been calling them boulders.
Yeah.
That has also been triggering. And I'm just like, girl, where's your discernment?
Yeah. I forget specifically what it was at the actual wedding that she said was not a red flag, but it was a huge red flag. I think
Oh,
it may have
the
been about that
engagement. The
yeah.
engagement. Hmm.
Yeah, she's like, I don't it's not really a red flag. I'm like, no, baby, it is. It's a huge one. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's that was the other thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, she really is is like letting all these things go.
Like,
I wondered if that was because they were intimate, that it was
yeah.
clouding her judgment and it was causing her to be so confused. I wondered if that was contributing. I don't know, but we're like seeing all these red flags and we're like, girl.
Yeah.
I also feel like, where's her family and where are her
Yeah.
friends?
Yeah. It's the accountability on both sides is missing, to be quite fair. But yeah, definitely the ignoring of the red flags because it's like I feel like Chris has shown her who he is.
Yeah. When
And
someone shows you who they are, you
yes,
should believe them.
he keeps showing her that he's a walking red flag, and she's like, "No, it's a white flag." It's not. It's like, no, nah, girl. He has shown you who he is, and a part of also the thing that is exhausting with him is that he feels like because he tells the truth, which is debatable in some instances, that he's not leading her on, that
Yeah,
he's
and
not
that
doing
he's not
anything wrong.
dragging her through anything. Um, that's him being accountable, is being
Yeah.
just being honest.
Yeah, and his honesty at times has been like very disrespectful. So,
Yeah, I do. You one more thing when you talked about the self-worth, something that kind of like broke my heart was when he told her he wasn't attracted to her and she like didn't react. And it made me wonder, have you been told this before? So it made me wonder like how she sees herself or how she's been treated
yeah.
in the past, that like she didn't flinch.
Yes.
Her eyes didn't well up with tears. She didn't run out the room. Like I was thinking there would be some reaction because we saw her in her confessional talk about how attracted she was to him. And
Mhm.
she was just like, he's a beautiful man. And he literally tells you to your face that he doesn't see you in that same light. And she did not react. And I don't know if is hyper aware of the cameras and she went and cried in a corner somewhere later. Um, but yeah, I think that would have thrown me off and I'd have forgot that cameras were there.
Yeah.
So that made me wonder if she's been told that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. That and I feel like through their relationship that's never mentioned, never addressed, there's this colorism
I was just
conversation.
thinking that we had a white chicks moment. You
Yes,
said it.
that is just lingering because Paige is a darker skinned woman, and she's darker skinned. She's not well. I don't know if you consider like fully like dark skin, but I want to say she's a little bit darker than Chris.
You know what?
They
She
might be
might
the
be.
same complexion, to
Is
be
she the
fair.
same complexion as Brianna, or is Brianna actually darker than her?
I think Brianna's a little bit darker than her.
Brianna's another woman on
Um,
the show, y'all.
yeah, but like Paige is a beautiful girl. Like she's she's a gorgeous girl, and it really does feel like what is being said without being said is he would be attracted to her if she was light skinned.
Yeah, it. You hate to say that, but that's kind of what you get from it, just in the fact that he's attracted to her whole
Mhm.
physique, and he kind of doesn't really, and then the fact that he doesn't know her, so he can't really say, oh, it's her personality that is me. So you can't say that it's that, so it has to be something outward
Yeah,
when, on the first day, the day of their marriage, the day after they got married, he tells her, that he's not attracted to her, and it's like,
and it caused him to have a panic attack.
right, and it caused him to have a panic attack. So you're like, what could it be? Because you can't draw a conclusion, or you would hope someone wouldn't draw a conclusion about everything that someone is in 24 hours.
Right.
So it's like you can't say you know her, you don't know her personality, you don't know how she is. So it must be something outward.
Yeah.
But you keep talking about her shape and her booty and
Yes.
so you can't help but conclude, is it that? Is that what it is?
Yeah. 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 And
Hmm.
guys, how many more episodes is it? I don't know how many episodes are left, but we're like not even. This is day 11. Like
We
it's an
have to get through
8 week
8 weeks.
experiment.
We have to get through 8 weeks, and we haven't even made it all the way through week
Oh
two.
man. Yeah. So this is literally just the beginning. Yes. So did you have anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up? Excuse me.
I don't know. Like I said, I just hope that, maybe this is helpful somehow
I
to
really do hope it is.
someone who sees themselves as her, like, currently. I
Yeah.
hope that, because people that we see it from the past, like our younger selves, it's like clearly we've moved past that. But I hope that someone who's maybe currently sees themselves as, oh my gosh, I'm Paige. I
Yeah.
hope that this is able to help them. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yes, and I hope Paige, after this is all done with, that she meets the love of her life and lives happily ever after.
I
Because
really do. One thing I will say, she looks fire on the unfiltered.
oh,
Yes, hair.
she's
Yes, outfit. She looks like she done lost some weight, maybe a little
yeah,
too.
yeah,
She
she
looks
looks really good.
amazing.
So I'm rooting for her. I'm not rooting for them as a couple. Not rooting for him
We
at
are
all.
rooting. We are definitely rooting for her to find real love.
Yes.
Oh,
So that's that. Maybe once the reunion has aired, maybe we'll come back together and do another recap
maybe.
of the season.
Just know that I have both of them on my prayer list.
Yes, it has been a doozy, and like we said, this is barely week 2 of marriage. We still got 6 more weeks to get through. So
It's like I can only imagine what's more to come.
yes,
It's kind of crazy that it's been this many episodes and it's only been
el-
11 days.
11 days, a week and a half.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, that's all I got. Mariah, did you want to tell people how they can connect with you on social media if they would like to?
Oh, see, here's the thing, Angel. You know I don't know this off the top of my head. On Facebook, I am Mariah Collins. On Instagram, which, oh snap, see, I'm
It's
out here trying to
Mariah underscore
for
Liza.
Liza one.
I'll
Yes,
add it to the
Mariah
description.
underscore Liza one. I think it's the same thing on Twitter. I don't really tweet. I just go on Twitter for news. But if you really want to
That's
connect with
weird.
me, your best bet is Facebook, where I'm Mariah Collins, or Instagram, where I'm Mariah underscore Liza, Liza 1.
All right.
It
Thanks.
was nice
Thank
talking with
you
you,
for
y'all.
being my guest today, Mariah, and having
Thank
this
you for having me.
conversation. And thank you all for watching this bonus episode. A little bit different than what we normally talk about. It was like, I got to talk about this because this, I have to. I had to get it out. So I hope you all enjoyed. And I'm going to say this and then we're going to wrap up. Reasons like this is why I encourage my ladies to be whole, be healed, and be authentic so that you don't have to put up with this mess.
Please, please do.
Okay. All right. But I hope you all have an amazing week. And I'll see you next week on Thursday for the next episode. And that is, I'm not going to tell y'all what it's about because I want y'all to see the title first and then be like, Angel, what? So you have to watch next week.
Amazing.
So, bye.
Bye.